Welcome back to Partnerships Unraveled, the podcast where we unravel the mysteries of partnerships and channel on a weekly basis. My name is Rick van der Bos and I'm the CEO and founder at Channext, and I'm here together with Alex Whitford, VP Partners at Channext. Alex, how are you doing today?
Doing well, thanks, Rick. How are you?
Also very good as well, and for especially for today, because we've been chatting a lot lately, that a lot of our podcasts are about things that might need improvement in the channel or that are not running that well, I think. But for today, we've been discussing, maybe we can look at it from completely the other way. What does the partner promised land look like?
Yeah, I think we've now recorded 27 hours of slagging off the channel, so maybe it's time to be slightly more positive. It's 1st of April now, so we can tackle the next quarter more positively. So yeah, today we discuss what the partner promised land should look like, why all the changes and all the criticisms that we've been making, why when you change those, what does your channel really look like?
So for today, we've picked 5 key things that can bring you to the partner promised land. And I'd like to begin with the first one, which is effortless partner recruitment. What does that mean to you, Alex?
Yeah, that's definitely one of the key things that you need if you're going to build the promised land, right? Partner recruitment, that's the first step to building your channel. And effortless partner recruitment means how do you bring in the right volume of partners, the right type of partners at scale, cross-functionally in lots of regions simultaneously and highly automated. That's really what you're trying to build your partner program to do all the time. Bring in the right type of partners, get the partners fully engaged and get them towards self-sustaining revenue continuously and efficiently.
And I think if I could add there, what's very important there is that you don't have an outbound partner recruitment flow, but that you are really building your brand as well. So you also get inbound partner recruitment. And I think we've been chatting a lot about the fact how important it is to build a strong end user brand. And that's also very true for your partner recruitment strategy, because the better your brand becomes at the end user level, the more partners will hear about you. Everyone's chatting about you in the market, and all of a sudden you turn it around where partners are coming to you versus you having to do all the outreach. And that's also a big part of Effortless, right?
Yeah, 100%. The best sales team are a great combination between inbound and outbound. The best partner teams are exactly the same thing. And so certain brands have built amazing reputations. Shout out to Ring Central. The guys over there have done a phenomenal job. They win awards every year for the quality of their partner program, how great their onboarding and their enablement structure is. And that builds a reputation. And I know partners in the UK who've proactively reached out to Ring Central because of the strength of their partner program, because they've done the due diligence and there's a really high conversion between partner recruited all the way through to self-sustaining revenue. And for me, that is the desired outcome. That's the promised land that we're talking about, that you're strategically choosing partners to reach out to, but also partners are reaching out to you, and they are all at an unbelievably high conversion, being recruited, engaged, and driving towards revenue.
Yeah, and I think another thing we touched upon quite so much in previous episodes was the ideal partner profile. I think that's also one, if you get really good at finding out what is my ideal partner profile, and you get those partners into your program, then those partners will become much more successful, which will also spread in the market in terms of the messaging going into the market, and also lead to getting better and more quantity partners into your program.
Yeah, for me, the really important bit there is the conversion percentage, right? I would rather effortlessly recruit 50 partners and have all 50 convert than recruit 1,000 partners and only 50 convert, right? You need that really tight conversion. And so building a partner program and building a marketing approach and a sales approach that really defines that IPP really well, so that you only bring and or attract partners that fit that profile well into your program, because then that's going to be what maintains that conversion to be really high.
Yeah, and then what I'm also just thinking of now is I think maybe the third point is being super transparent, right? That you show, I think we also spoke about it before, that you show on your website, out in the open, everything about your partner program. So because that's usually, it's the same as when you're in a buying cycle for software, for example. You would love to know, what does it do exactly, how does it work, what is the price, etc. And it's the same for your partners. They would love to know, like, what does the partner program entail? What is the margin I can make on those products? How does it look like exactly? And I think the more you push that kind of communication towards your website, for example, the better your partner recruitment will be as well.
Yeah, 100%. I think you've drawn a great comparison there. I hate when I go onto a SaaS website and I can't see the pricing structure, and some people will tell me, but what happens if that price is too high, and we turn away the wrong partner or something like that? And I always just think, we'll just put an accurate price there. You will filter some out, but it's going to mean that there's almost no operational lag, because you're just choosing your IPP. So as long as your program is well designed, you can blast that information high and wide, because that's going to make sure that you only attract the right type of partners. Remember, if you've got the mindset of having lots of opportunity rather than mindset of there's hardly any opportunity, that wealth mindset is going to help drive growth, because you are going to exclude anyone that doesn't fit your exact parameters, but it will allow you to drive focus into exactly the type of partner you do want to be working with.
So I think to summarize, to achieve effortless partner recruitment, you need a strong brand, both at the end user and the partner. You need to automate the process as much as possible, so you can get a high volume there as well, and be super transparent out to the market to really show what your program has to give. So actually the conversion becomes higher there as well in terms of registrations.
I can smell the promised land already, absolutely.
Then on to the next point, key point number 2, which is an easy, fast, and rewarding partner journey. So once you've signed the partner agreement and your partner is recruited, the phase that's coming afterwards. What is the definition of the promised land there for you?
Yeah, for me, there is one goal when you're building a channel, and that is to get the right partners, the right amount of partners to self-sustaining revenue. You start with recruitment, and then you drive onto the engagement, which is what we're discussing here. And the best partner journey possible gets partners onboarded, enabled, engaged, and delivering revenue, and in the shortest time frame possible. For that, you're going to need to very clearly outline the expectations on the partner, the support that you're going to give them, as well as sales and marketing tools to help them generate revenue, and potentially even feed them with starter leads to get them off the ground running. If you get that right blend, what you will find is partners get onto your platform, they get engaged very quickly, they have a great experience, and they close their first deal in a very short amount of time. And that leaves them very positive, one, within the experience, but two, in the long-term growth of their partnership with you.
Yeah, I like that one. I think you have this saying in sales and customer success where they say like you win your renewal or your upsell in the onboarding phase. And I think that's also very true within partnerships, right? The sooner you can bring time to value, the better it is towards the long-term success of your partnership.
Yeah, we were actually talking about this with a potential new customer of ours, a global VP, and we were drawing the comparison between customer success and partner success. Unfortunately, he was in massive agreement with us. I think there's so much to learn. Customer success is probably a few years ahead of the partnerships channel, and I think there's so much credibility in what they've built, both in terms of automation and how you do it automatically, but also in the minute touch points that you need to do very personally. And that traction in the onboarding phase is critical to partner retention as it's critical for customer retention.
Yeah, I fully agree there. I think an easy, fast, and rewarding partner onboarding journey really starts with a very strong partner success plan, right? Like what does such a plan needs to include in your opinion?
Yeah, for me, the partner success plan sets out a couple of things, or 3 key things. 1, where are we going? So what's the goal that we're working towards? 2, how long is that going to take? What's the time frame? And then thirdly, what's the expectation put on the partner versus the vendor versus the distributor, right? Whether that's done in a sort of racy document or a Gantt chart, however that's aligned. But what you want is very clearly the salespeople within the partner need to do this, marketing needs to do this, the distributor's going to support here, the vendor's going to support here. So everyone is very clear on who owns what in terms of roles and responsibilities and the expected outcome from the onboarding. And I think that's done partly in recruitment and partly in the partner success plan. No one's going to go through all of this work to win 50 euros worth of business, right? We're doing this to win significant amount of business, and the more business available to there, the more hoops partners will jump through, but setting very clear expectation on what are the hoops, how many are there, but the goal at the end of the journey, right? That's what you're all aiming for.
Yeah, I like that. I think when I look at the fast part of the partner onboarding journey there, the plan is crucial. Like the better you've you have that, and the more clear it is for the partner as well where the finish line is, the quicker you can get there.
Yeah, and again, the customer success comparison is there time and time again, right? For me, and I've sat in amazing customer success calls. Shout out to Mick, who's our head of customer success here at Channext. I think he does an amazing job. But within 5 minutes of the first customer success call, document goes up. Here's where we're going to get to you. Here's what time frame. Here's the expected outcomes. Here's how we're going to measure impact. Here's how we're going to drive progress. And here's how we're going to support you. Within 5 minutes, the customer's going, oh, yeah, great. I've got a very clear understanding of everything. And the level of trust that builds almost instantaneously, because someone has just laid out with sort of methodical detail all the plans, as well as where the blockers can arise, as well as where the challenges arise. That just puts the customer in such a comfort mode, because they understand that there's a massive level of support there. Partner journey is exactly the same.
Yeah, I like that one. And when I'm thinking about, for example, the easy part, I think that's crucial where you started within this key point, which is indeed that you really facilitate your partners there with automation, with support as well. Make it as easy as possible to get them towards the first couple of leads, for example, with very strong marketing support, but also thinking about can we give our partners some leads, but then also through a scalable way where you actually give them to them, but also make it very clear to that partner you get them, but you only have X amount of days, for example, to follow up on them, etc. And I think there you can win a lot in terms of making it easy, that as soon as they get the partner agreement, they get access to your platform where they can then have all the interactions that they need to do in as short as possible time as a partner to get themselves towards the end goal of the success plan.
Yeah, I've worked out my retirement plan. I'm coining the term and trademarking the term starter leads, because I think that's what they are, right? So often people and channels misunderstand what starter leads should be, and they don't set the expectation, hey, here's 3 to get you over the line, to get you started, but that's it. That's all you're getting. And you want to be very clear, and I think starter leads are a valuable tool to get people off the ground, get people used to the sales cycle, get them highly engaged early on, because that's really important. But it's so important that they understand, right, the number's 3 or 5 or 10 or 15 or unlimited for the first 3 months, but that there is a deadline. There is a finite time frame where you're going to feed a partner, and then from that point on, they need to self-generate leads and opportunities from there. And marketing support to make that happen is obviously critical. So you want a blend between fully supported and almost no support, and you want that to be a sort of evolution in terms of engagement and involvement.
Yeah, that's a good one. And then also indeed to really make sure that it also becomes rewarding. I think there's also crucial thing there to make sure you celebrate the wins with the partner. So if you have a very strong partner success plan, then actually you can set very specific milestones, but also make sure that every time as a partner ticks off that milestone, that it's celebrated for them, that they get a celebration message, that you do some gamification where they can win things, etc. And I think that's really the thing what I've been thinking about a lot. We also need to celebrate the wins within the early start of a partnership.
I can't believe I'm saying this, but I think partner managers should take their partners out for more beers is basically what we're saying. But on a serious note, you're absolutely right. There's no good just celebrating the first deal, right? Because there's a load of leading measures that's going to drive sort of rapport building, relationship building, which in the early bit is so important. Well, the first generated opportunity, let's go and celebrate that. The first campaign that's gone out, let's go and celebrate that. If that's sending a present to the marketing manager who's done their first thing, whether it's taking the full sales floor out for beers after the first deal, it sort of doesn't matter, but you want to be celebrating the success, not just on the outcome, but the progress through the quarters.
Yeah, I think that's a great one. So I think to summarize that, if you want to make your partner journey fast, you need a very strong partner success plan. To make it easy, you need very strong processes and automation that you guide your partners through it, and proactively support as well with things like marketing. And to make it rewarding, you need to do celebrations and gamification, so you also really create that buzz within the partnership to really get your partners to success.
Sounds like an awesome plan.
And then the third step is, once you have them onboarded, then in the promised land, the third key point is that you want to get your partners to self-sufficient partners. And I think we've been chatting about it a lot, right? That self-sufficient, the partner needs to be able to find new customers, to close new customers, and then to make them successful continuously. What kind of things do you need to get your partners to such a level?
Yeah, well, again, not to sort of tout the same information, but it's a plan, right? It's they've got to understand what their roles and responsibilities are, not just through the engagement cycle, but do they know how to open up opportunities? Do they know how to close opportunities? And do they know how to renew opportunities? That really is the full element from a sales perspective, but then marketing and technical and operations flow into that journey. And so I would work back from that sales cycle, right? How are we going to find a new customer? How do we close that customer? And how do we renew/upsell that customer? And then understand how marketing, technical and operations play a role in that whole sales cycle and that repeatable sales cycle, and then hang your enablement plan off the back of that. I know so many businesses who do an amazing job getting a partner to close deals, and then they haven't told them how to upsell deals. And the waste of opportunity there is crazy, because it's so much harder to win new business than it is to upsell existing business. And so you want to pour time into that circular effect of open, close, renew, open, close, renew, open, close, renew. And if you get that flywheel turning really, really quickly, you've built a channel that will become self-sustaining over time. And don't forget, that self-sustainable revenue comes from self-sufficient partners. So they've got to understand that full mechanism and then drive the gamification and support and everything around turning that flywheel really quickly.
Yeah, that upsell one is very interesting you're touching upon, because I know as actually that renewals, for example, is one of the hardest things there is for a lot of SaaS companies who are running a channel play there, because the channel partners, especially in the resell model, are responsible for the renewal. But we are so focused on enabling our partners to find new customers that we're losing a lot of revenue again later down the road.
Yeah, it's actually bad channel design, and that's a symptom of, for example, AEs only being paid on net new accounts. And so what happens when you do that is the AEs then, or the partner account managers, drive behavior which wins net new deals, which one is not aligned to how the partner will care, because they typically get paid on renewals and upsells. But if you design your program optimally, you will reward their behavior of retention. Don't forget, all SaaS brands, they are valued predominantly on how well they retain customers. And so poor channel organization, poor partnership organization will only reward net new. Whereas if you went and spoke to the CFO, they would turn away net new customers on the basis of driving up retention, because lifetime value is what values SaaS brands so powerfully.
Yeah, I like that one. I'm just thinking out loud right now. Indeed, if you look at those self-sufficient partners, so you explained as well, you start with the end in mind. So a partner needs to be able to find, to close, and to renew or upsell that piece, and then you build an enablement play. What type of enablement plays can you create per thing to help your partners with that?
Yeah, so off the fly channel consulting. So the way I would build that out is, one, I start with automation, right? So what is our notice period for driving upsells? Is it 3 months out? Is it 6 weeks out? Is it 6 months out? So that we can then go into the accounts and always be aiming for an upsell, and at worst case renew. If you don't have that cycle in place, if you don't have the partner platform that messages a salesperson within the distributor and the partner and the end user to say, hey, we'd love to have a chat about how you're using the platform. Hey, you're at capacity. Hey, you haven't used the product in 3 months. Can we re-engage? That's what you need to drive retention and upsell effectively. So that's almost one pillar to build around. And then the first pillar is, how do you open opportunities? Well, that's a combination of sales and marketing. I would use marketing automation, both in terms of cold outreach and social selling. And then in terms of closing the opportunity, what's expected of the partner, what's expected of the disty, what's expected of the vendor? Are we doing demos? Are we doing proof of concept? Build that structure very, very methodically around those 3 pillars of the flywheel. And then you can start to turn that at speed and invest resource in turning the flywheel faster. But remember, I was messaging with Barrett King earlier today about this. Don't scale what isn't working. So first, worry about depth. Have we turned the flywheel once or twice very effectively? And then we can worry about breadth. Then we can go really wide. But what you want to do is build the pillars foundationally within each partner first. Do they understand how to open deals? Very effectively. Do they understand how to close deals? Very effectively. Do they understand how to renew and upsell deals? Very effectively. Once they do that, then worry about driving huge volume. But until you've done that, until you've proved it at least in a couple of partners, there's no point in scaling wide. Otherwise, I can tell you what's going to happen. You will close loads of deals. Congratulations. Short-term win. because then they're all going to churn out next year because no one knows how to renew those deals effectively. That's what happens when you scale a channel before it's ready.
Yeah, that's crucial. I always love thinking about playbooks for things like that, but indeed we see it as well in our own sales and marketing team, right? That you first really want to know that the playbook works before you start training everyone on it. And I think it's the same approach in partnerships. Make sure that you make a playbook very successful with a very specific set of partners, but then think, okay, how can I scale this now to as many partners as possible? So how do you enable them in the right way with the training, with the right decks, with the right materials, but then also how do you test whether they actually have their knowledge, etc., on the right level? And I think that's indeed the first step. Make it work very small, but then scale big with your enablement strategy to make sure you get as many partners to self-sufficient as possible. And also very important there, I think you need to digitize this because there's also a lot of turnover also at your partners. So if you train someone very good, but they leave, then you need another way to, like, you need to know who is still at your partner every single time of the day. And you also need to make sure that when there are new people, they get back into the like enablement playbooks rollout as soon as possible.
100%. It's actually one of my technology sort of bugbears. If you look at what's happening with the SVB, the bank in the US, and you look at maybe some of the negative connotations SaaS and technology have, it's that of huge burn rates of products that don't actually deliver value, of, oh, these businesses aren't profitable. And all of it to me can be summed down by one symptom. It's we go wide before we go deep, right? Which is if you've got a BDR and they're, booking one intro call a week and you need to 10x that, you don't hire 10 more BDRs. You get that BDR up to a standard before you go wide. You optimize the process and then you go wide. Channel and partnerships are exactly the same game. So I think when we're talking about the promised land for partners, that promised land can only come once you've built a promised land with just a few partners. Then you can go super wide, right? Then you can automate onboarding, enablement, recruitment, self-sustaining revenue, right? That really is the promised land. You automate the process, but you automate the process that you've built manually in a small subset of partners. That's really going to win. And to me, that's really easy to sell into a CFO, right? To go and get more budget, to go and get more resources. You go, here's what we did with 3 to 5 partners. Look how great it's working. I would now like to turn that into 300 to 500 partners over the next 18 months, 2 years, 2.5 years. I'm going to need X resource. This is how we're going to automate. This is how we're going to iterate. And this is how we're going to learn. That's a plan that a CFO will sign off because you've proved it. You've tested the hypothesis. You know it works. Then you can scale. But don't scale before you've built.
So to get your partners to self-sufficient partners, first, you really need to start with the end in mind and really work backwards. Okay, what does my partner need to be able to do to find, close, renew, and upsell the customers? Then you create playbooks around that. And very important, I like the last one that you said, first go deep before you go wide. And I think if you do that, then you have the highest likability of reaching that promised land of self-sufficient partners.
Hey, we all want an easy life. And if you can prove it with 3 partners, it's much easier than proving it with 500.
Yeah, I like that one. And also nice that you start with 500 now, or maybe thousands, because I think that's the fourth key point within the promised land. How do you manage your partners at scale? Like if you have to manage thousands, how do you make sure that with a lean and small channel, you can still make those partners very successful?
That's the word. And that's the other trademark that's going in. A lean channel. When people hear 500, 1,000, 3,000, 5,000 partners, these crazy numbers, they think, oh, 5,000 partners, we've got to have hundreds of partner account managers. False. You need the right technology. You need the right process. You need the partner account managers to be super agile. The example I always use is HubSpot has allowed people to hire less BDRs. Why? Because sequencing does a lot of the automated journey on their behalf, right? Yep. And so I can scale my same BDRs into a much wider target account list, right? Rather than having to recruit 50, I can recruit 5 and use sequencing and automation to still deliver a high amount of value, but automate the steps in between. That same design is how you manage hundreds and thousands of partners with a lean channel team. Invest in the technology, the automation, and the playbooks to do all the automated steps so that the partner account managers spend their time doing the manual interventions, things like face-to-face meetings, things like QBRs, and the digital partner success management happens automatically.
Yeah, I think if I think about it, there are 3 steps you need to take to really manage your partners at scale in a digital way. The first one is measure every single partner engagement, literally everything. Like, are they following your training? Are they registering deals? Are they participating in marketing? Are they reading your announcements or your partner communication, etc.? Then make sure that from all those partners and all that engagement data, you turn them into partner health scores. So you can actually rank your partners very quickly, even though if it's thousands, but that you immediately see, oh, these are my top partners at the moment in terms of health score. I can do upsell motions. Here, those partners are getting less and less active, so maybe they are churning. So you can be very specific with where are you spending your time and attention. And then as the third step, digitize a lot of the partner journey where those playbooks we were talking about with self-sufficient partners, that they are automatically triggered based on those partner health scores. And in such a way, I think here's also a lot to learn about from customer success again, because they do this for their long tail customers. They can't have a high-end touch, so not a day-to-day touch with those type of customers. So they need a digital approach there. And I think that's also a crucial one within the partnerships.
Yeah, I completely agree. I think the mechanism to be able to automate the other steps, to use playbooks and sequencing to really drive the bit. But the bit that I love there is the health score. Why that's so important is you're not actually just looking at the rank order of your partners. To me, that's not particularly interesting because you can use revenue to do the same data measurement. You're looking for the movement, and you're looking for the movement ahead of the revenue change, right? Which is, oh, partner 783 has just risen to 491. Well, that's a big movement. What do we need to do? Well, I should probably go and get a partner account manager to call the partner, book a meeting in, and discuss why they're moving so aggressively, because maybe they're going to be our next rising star, right? That's the benefit of full automation and full scale. You are looking for the 20% of partners who deliver the 80% of revenue. So you're looking to take partners from 0 to hero as effectively as possible. The only way to do that at scale is not to only track revenue, that's a failing mechanism, but to track the lead measures to revenue. Things like partner marketing activity, things like partner engagement. Investing in the right automation tools that can measure the leading indicators is going to help you align resource to drive the lagging indicator.
And I think with those lead indicators, we immediately touch upon the fifth and the last point within the promised land, because that is predictable and scalable partner revenue. And I think what we've been talking about time and time again, but also hearing from all our customers and also other vendors, is how do I get more insight into the pre-revenue phase? So every quarter or every month, I get my sales outlist, etc., and I see where we're at with the revenue, but I have so few indicators to actually guide me towards where am I going to head. Am I on its way to achieve my target, or am I behind? What do you feel? What's crucial there to get towards the predictable and scalable partner revenue?
Yeah, let me tell you a little story. I was speaking to a channel director a couple of months ago, and he manages maybe 5,000 partners globally. Gets a POS report, right? Their average deal cycle is 8 months. So that POS report's 8 months out of date, right? That tells you how bad the problem of a lack of data is, because he's hitting a great number, awesome, but there's macroeconomic changes, partners of COVID, all these financial troubles. His data's 8 months out of date. Partners are closing deals today, and they might not have talked about his product or opened up a new opportunity for 8 months. You can imagine how terrified he is of running that channel and being confident about the continual growth of that channel. It's an awful place to be. So obviously we're going to have conversations around how he can deepen the level of data enrichment in his channel, not just deal registration, but partner recruitment, partner activity, partner marketing. How many opportunities are we creating? How many outreaches are salespeople doing about his brand? That's the piece that you want to be able to measure, because once you've got that across thousands of partners, you can make that incredibly predictable and accurate. The thing here to learn is, again, from CS, when customer success does digital health scores of all their customers, they are able to, with a crazy level of accuracy, predict partners who are likely to churn, versus partners who are likely to upsell. Spotify does this all the time, right? They can measure how often, how many devices you listen to, and they can send you feedback based on how confident they are that you are going to retain or churn, or how to manage you more effectively. You need that same level of data, especially if you've got a long sales cycle, because your data is so out of date and you can't align resource effectively. Someone might stop selling your solution 6 months ago and you've got no clue.
And the longer you're capturing that data, the more insights you'll get. Because I think that's indeed the level where you go. If you're tracking that for a longer period of time, you can see, hey, partners with a health score of 8 on average do 3 deal registrations a month. Partners with a health score of 9 do 4, etc. And that's really where you can start working on what we call an operating model, where you can work all the way from the top of new partner prospects to closed won partner revenue. And you can really work, okay, how many partners do we need to recruit to eventually get X amount of partners onboarded, then get Y amount of partners into self-sufficient, where they are continuously driving deals and things like that. And then how many of those partners, based on their health score, are actually doing this amount of deal registrations, and then what's our closed won rate within those deals that we're working on. And the more data you get there, you can really get those conversion percentages and eventually literally do reverse engineering. That if you hear your revenue target, that you can literally calculate backwards, how many partners do I need to recruit to get there?
And I think for some people, they'll think this is a mile away. This is too good. This promised land that you've been describing for the last half an hour is impossible to get to. I'll tell you, there are absolutely brands out there who do this incredibly well, and you'll be amazed whenever I speak to them how small their channel team is, how they're able to drive such outsized returns. And it's why when we speak to VCs all the time, they are so heavily investing in partnership-led businesses, because they know that this is true. You can have a small team that delivers huge outsized returns in terms of revenue growth, and it's continuous, predictable, scalable, and efficient.
I love it. So to summarize, to reach the promised land, there are 5 key things that we want to achieve within the promised land. And the first one is effortless partner recruitment. The second one is easy, fast, and rewarding partner journey. The third one is self-sufficient partners. The fourth one is managing partners at scale. And the fifth one is predictable and scalable partner revenue. And I think if we can achieve that, I think that's really the dream that we're continuously working on as a partner market to really achieve that promised land. Alex, I would like to thank you for today again, for sharing all your thoughts around this topic. I would like to thank our listeners and see you next week.